Hi everybody, my name is Reza Fatahi. Today I'm going to go over a little timer application using the Swift programming language announced by Apple earlier this week. The Swift programming language book is available by Apple. If you search Apple Swift book, it should come up and available online and for iBooks. It's a great resource and one that will keep me personally very busy for some time. It's a very rich language. It takes a lot of great parts of many different languages, and I'm very excited about using Swift. So, using some of Samsoft's tips from earlier today, I've gone ahead and made a little timer application that we'll be creating right now. Single view application. It's called timer application. And the timer application is a great learning tool. It helped me previously to learn Objective-C, and that's why I did it with Swift. So the timer application has the timer application label, or the title label, and the timer label itself, where the value of the timer is displayed, has a start button, and it has a stop reset button. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and define the rect for the timer application label. This will be a constant, so using the let keyword, I have the ability to define a variable. I'll call it the title label rect, and same API is available as before, cgrect make, and here I want 10 pixels on each side, 40 pixels down, actually make it 60 pixels down, and the width will be the size of the screen minus the offset. So using the UI screen, main screen, and the height set at 44, and I actually don't need the semicolon. And I'll go ahead and make the rect for the timer label also while I'm here. This one I want it to be nice and fat, so actually here I'm going to have a label that's 220 pixels long, so the padding will be 110 on each side, and I wanted 80 pixels down, and well, that doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? I don't think my font size will cover 20 pixels, so I'll keep it at 80 and hopefully that'll work. Can change it later. So here now we have the recs, and I'm going to go ahead and use the modular, I guess, pattern to define the title label itself. And the title label is of type UI label. So that will be inside the body. We'll have this label variable. You can then assign the attributes, change the attributes of this. So here we'll call it, the the font attributes of that label, and then return the label and have the invocation for that. And the timer label itself, it will be a variable because it's going to need to change by nature. So this is also a UI label, and have the same pattern in here. And have bigger size font, have the invocation present there also. So using the viewDidLoad method, I'm going to go ahead and assign these to the subview of self.view as subviews of self.view. So title label will be one, and the timer label will be the other. And before that, definitely want them to have some frame. So the title label will have its frame, and the timer label will have its frame. Timer label. Okay. And it'd be nice to have the title itself and call it the super awesome timer application. Also assign value for the timer label just so that we could get to see it. So right now I'm expecting that the labels are actually configured well enough that they'll show on screen. Okay, awesome. And yeah, we do have to change that, put that down a little bit. Okay, so now we're ready for our buttons. Same thing with our buttons. We'll have a start button, rect, and we'll have a stop button, rect. And for this one, to get them to be dynamic and look well, the buttons are going to be 100 pixels long, and I want 20 pixels of padding between the buttons. So I can do that. And the offset will be, we're at 144, let's do it 160, let's do it 200 just to be safe. And the width will be 100, the height will be 44, and same with the stop button. So size width divided by 2, and here at the plus 20, and same there. All right. I want my stop button to change its title label. I'm actually going to keep both of them as variables instead of assigning them as constants. So same pattern. Do it for the start button first, and that's a UI button. And we'll have the button be the UI button and return button. Have the invocation there. So essentially what we're doing inside the body, we're saying, okay, we're having a variable, declaring it, calling it button, saying let it be a button, UI button, and we're returning it. And we did the same thing with the label. And this invocation at the end, I think that it also provides the opportunity to add overrides to the module, kind of like a mix-in in JavaScript. We're not using it right now, but it would be interesting to see how that would work. So now we have our buttons, and what I could do is to go inside the view.did and configure everything. A button needs a couple things. It definitely needs a frame, so let's go ahead and assign the frames for the start and stop buttons. Call it rect, okay, and stop button. All right. So buttons are a little bit different. I think you may know about this. They have to have a target. So in addition, we want it to have a label. So the first thing I'll do is add the label, and very interestingly enough, if I do a set title, it's there. And set title was from before Swift, so it's very nice that that's still the same. And UI control state dot normal is how I access UI control state normal. I would like to assign my start button to a target, and the way I'll do that is using add target as before. The target will be self, And my selector, I'll go ahead and name it start timer. And the control event will be a UI control event as before. And you notice that touch up outside is not there. I could do dot touch up inside is present. And last but not least, we'll go ahead and add the start button to subview. And another thing I would like to do, oh, and the action needs to be in quotes is another thing. So I'm not keeping track of who the sender is, so I'm not having the colon at the end. Let's do the same for stop button. Set the title, and we'll have it stop for UI control state.normal, and let's add the target for stop button. We'll call it stop timer, and all right, add that to subview. And one thing I like to do with buttons is to give them a little bit of a background color so that I can actually see, what's going on with them. So I'm just going to give them some arbitrary background color, not defining anything fancy, and that's with the intention of getting rid of it, but for this exercise it really doesn't matter if they're there or not. So got 2 copies of that. All right. The next thing is to go ahead and create those functions. And functions are they're awesome here. That's my favorite thing about Swift are the functions. And yeah, so you call it with func and give it a name. And here we have start timer, that is a function. And we have another func called stop timer. And I'm just going to print out some log statements. Just to make sure that we're configured correctly. All right, let's run it, check it out. Oops. So here, the invocation of the function. Can't forget that. All right, so if I click start, all right, I get start. If I click stop, I get stop. Getting the behavior, and it's looking good. All right. So a couple things you'll notice is that this label, it's not, it's not looking too hot right now, and yeah, so we'll be working on that as we go along. The start timer will essentially be triggering a timer, and the timer will then call another function that will update the label. So we have our label assigned as a variable, so it's poised to be updated. The only thing we need is our timer. So to get the timer, as you'd guess, it's the same API, just kind of with dot notation. So the method is a class method, and what we'll do is to have a every millisecond have the timer update the label. So we're going to use this one with target so that we could assign a self, and the time interval will be every millisecond. We're going to go ahead and target self, and the selector, we're going to just name it. We don't have to say add selector here. We'll say update timer label, and no user info, and yes. You'll notice that yes is not an option anymore. It's normal again. It's true. So the one thing that we do need is another func called update timer label. And here we'll have our timer label be updated to a variable. Now that's the thing, right now I don't have a variable to keep track of the time. So going back up here, I'll create that variable, time in milliseconds. And that'll be a float. And I'll assign that to, just keep it with precision. That doesn't really matter at all. So time in milliseconds here is going to be updated by 0.001 second to match the interval. And timer label needs some formatting. So the way to get the 3 decimal places is to use the NSString method format. And with format, I can go ahead and, very similar to before, have assign the 3 float digits and time in milliseconds as the argument. So right now, if I click start, we should see the start be printed, and then the timer should then update our label. Let's check it out to see if that happens. Alright, time looks good, and we're getting the behavior that we're expecting. So that's all good news. I'd like to go ahead and fix this up a little bit right now. The timer label, I'd like it to be down a couple frames. And, you know, the size of it, I put at 110. Is that correct? It shouldn't have been 110. It should have been 220. And here, it should have been UI screen, main screen, bounds, size, width, minus 110. Well, that doesn't look right at all. So if I want my padding, that was correct. I wanted it to start at 110 pixels padding, and it's 220 pixels wide. I have the width of the screen. I'm sorry, let me just think about this for a second. Half the width of the screen. Alright. It's looking good. Our stop button isn't configured to do anything except print out stop though. So let's go ahead and update that. What I'd like to do is to have a stop timer that also resets. So it needs to know a couple things. And the application needs to do a couple things. It needs to know when I click stop so that the timer does not update anymore. And also, when stop is clicked, I'd like the label to provide the option to reset the timer. So provide the option to reset timer is 1. The stop button needs to know if it's been stopped. And also update timer needs to know if it's been stopped. Has it been stopped? So immediately I'll need a couple variables. One will be a title variable for my button. So it'll be stop button title variable, and the initial value will be stop, and another variable is stopped or is paused. I like is paused better. Is it paused? I'm not going to try to put a question mark in there, but maybe you can. This will be a bool, and initial value will be no. It's not paused. So when the stop timer is pressed, is paused will be set to true, and the update timer will not work. So if is paused, if it's not paused, essentially, if bang paused, update, else don't do anything. And what I'd like to do here is now the title, instead of being stop, it should be the stop button title variable. And get rid of this print statement. I'd like to do a switch statement on the stop button title variable. So in case that it says stop, I'd like for the stop button title variable to be set to reset, and for the stop button, for its title to be updated to the variable. And if the value of the button title variable was reset, what I'd like is for the timer label to display 0.000, and also to reset the time in milliseconds, and to update the stop button title variable to stop, and assign the stop button to the stop button title variable for UI control state normal. So I hope I'm doing this right and that you're following with me. The program is giving me a warning or an error here saying that we must be exhaustive, and it's expecting a default. And because I don't have any more cases, I'll just go ahead and give it a generic default case. So one thing that I notice is that if start is pressed again, I'd like for the button not to have the option to be reset anymore. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy paste this in lieu of the print statement. And let's take a look. Let's give it a test drive. But we should be pretty close to being done. So start and stop. Start. Well, it does reset, but it doesn't start again. So I think here it's because our is paused is not set to true. Is paused is set to false. I'm sorry, we have to set it to false here, and we also have to set it to false over here. Well, we don't need this one anymore. So that should do it. 1, this should not do anything. Press stop, start again, should work. Stop, reset, start. And there you have it, a timer application. I'll be posting this on GitHub, and the link to it will be below in the details. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time. Bye.